We have seen many presentations these 2 days about early engagement. I think that Nalco, also Technique FMC, others spoke a lot about early engagement. And to be honest, early engagement is an investment that the contractor does in order to understand and be prepared for the market when it comes. So I have a practical example. My company, McDermott, we announced it today. We released to the press the pre-feed of the someone mentioned here the project of the moment. Mentioned yesterday, I don't remember who used that expression, but it's really a big project for Argentina, the LNG export terminal of YPF. So we signed last month the pre-feed of that project. It's a 5 million ton per annum, potentially going to 10 million ton LNG export plant and terminal, but that started much earlier. In 2018, we did the concept design of that plant. So this year we are starting the pre-feed. Why? Because we want to be well prepared when the real price comes, which is the EPC of the entire plant. It can be a $1 billion plus project, and when you do the engagement, as we are doing now, we want to understand as much as possible what is going to be the real cost of that job, what are the risks, what's the schedule, so that we may not have the most competitive offer, but we want to have the best or the most precise offer for the job, so that if we are awarded, as we have done all this process, we are able to have the right cost for the job and the right schedule for the job. So I think that early engagement, as I said, is something that is very much said, but we need really to spend some time believing that it will happen, to dedicate resources and to follow the whole process, hoping to get the prize at the end, which is the EPC contract or the project construction, as I said. So that's the importance of early engagement for me.
Thank you, Pablo. Andres, a couple of minutes ago, Francesco mentioned regarding the human capital potential in Argentina. So I know that you were the head of your company in the human capital area, and would be interesting to know your thoughts about that and what Argentina needs to develop in terms of capability to give support to the offshore industry.
Yeah, as Francesco mentioned, Argentina has the privilege of having a well-educated population in relation to the rest of Latin America, and that's obviously going to be a big plus going forward. The issue of the resource needs for an offshore industry, it's going to be very much a matter of timing, and to what extent those resources are going to be competed by the Vaca Muerta and the shale gas and shale oil development. So it's going to be a matter of timing. It's going to be encouraging to the extent that the government and the companies get engaged in early preparation to start preparing that human resource base, which is going to be very high. The other aspect that needs to be considered is the offshore industry is really an international industry. It is local content is an important aspect of it, but it is an international industry, and even in that industry we find a shortage of resources around the globe. There's been a generational gap around the globe in preparing resources for the oil industry. So it's really going to be how the timing fits the demand in Argentina. We see Brazil again getting very active in the deep water. We see Guyana in this hemisphere We see continued development in Australia. We see increased activity in the North Sea. So the offshore industry is becoming active worldwide. So I still think that Argentina needs to go through the exploratory phase. So we're probably 4 or 5 years out. But anything that can be done to prepare the people, that's going to be good for the industry.
Thank you, Andres. Good to you, Carlos. In all the years that you have been working in this industry, probably you have a lot of lessons learned from other frontier areas. Taking into account that Argentina is in the early stage, it would be interesting to know a couple of these lessons that you have and to share them with the audience.
Well, it's very interesting to have a forum like this so early in the game, because we engage in a conversation, we start talking about this. It's very embryonic still, but the seed is planted and hopefully it's going to grow into a tree. I think having more conversations, more discussion is very important. Engage all players in the industry, suppliers. Information is key. Expectations need to be at the right level. There's, as I said, a lot of specialized knowledge, a lot of specialized parts, raw materials that we need that have to be generated first. So sending that information to the industry, be very transparent, and in all honesty, look around you. There's a lot of things happening in the industry. Brazil went through these 30 years ago, and there's really good things that happened there. There's other things that didn't happen in the best way. Learn the lessons without assuming that a cookie cutter approach is what works. Most one size fits most, but not all. And again, I think fortunately it's a blessing to have such a big availability of resources, of experience there. Lean on your neighbors and try to get those lessons learned without thinking that that worked there worked here. Argentina in 2019 is not what Brazil was in the 80s when all of these got started.
Okay, thank you, Carlos. Francesco, we saw that the industry slowed down just a little in the last couple of years. So what do you think that the industry should improve to enhance its competitiveness in the next years?
Sure. Well, of course, we are coming out of a few years of slowdown. This for sure had some negative impact. But on the other side, there was also some positive, some added value, because at the end it pushed the whole supply chain to become more efficient, to find all the areas of optimization and to make, let's say, leaner cost structures inside each company. Now that there are signs of recovery, not only markets like Argentina, but also worldwide, we need to see what will happen to these, let's say, optimizations that were developed so far. Personally, I believe there were two components on this cost reduction that we have seen. On one side, there was the good one, which was basically the optimization. On the other side, there was some also commercial side to it. At the end of the day, when the work was slowing down, a lot of actors in the supply chain accepted basically to work at very low margin or at cost, or sometimes below the cost. Now that the market is going to ramp up again, I expect we should maintain the good portion. Means we should keep on working on the optimizations, and early contractor engagement is a good example of this. But on the other side, I'm expecting that the whole supply chain will go back to reasonable, let's say, commercial conditions, which ultimately are good for the final result. Because when you work in a project where the whole supply chain is stressed, let's say, economically, this is not good for the overall result, because you may have lots of issues during the project execution.
Thank you, Francesco. And if there is a subsea incident as passed in Macondo in the Gulf of Mexico, who would assume the overall command of that?
Interesting. There's a couple of examples. The US and Mexico have a bilateral agreement, Mexus, and it's a combination of both the US Coast Guard and Mexican Coast Guard. And they will assume command depending on how close to the border it is, so they pass it over. But there's joint operations that go on, and there's a very robust incident command structure there. Now, in the US Cuba bilateral agreement, the US Coast Guard takes overall command, their incident commanders. So everyone will fall in under that structure. And down here, I would imagine it would be the Argentine Coast Guard that took command. And then, depending on how they manage resources, they would slot everybody in under that. Of course, it would be incumbent on a body within the Argentine government to assess the oil spill risk, and then if there is a subsea blowout, call up those resources appropriately. Again, that might be allocated to Navy, for example, or the Coast Guard might take control there. It's not a subject I'm terribly familiar with down here, but that's what happens elsewhere in the world. It's usually Coast Guard that take command.
Thank you. I have one last question that one or two of you can answer that, but what we see is that we have the first round this year of offshore. In Argentina we'll be having new rounds in the future. So we mentioned at the beginning the uncertainties that we are seeing in Argentina from political and economic point of view. So the question is if you consider appropriate or advantage to do for the international companies to do any JV or association with local groups, which is the advantage of doing that if you see.
I've always been a big believer in joint ventures. I think that brings the best of both worlds. You bring experience, and you partner with someone local who understands the local conditions, who can guide you. There's always traps there. You need to be very careful, do your due diligence very well, and find the right partner. But I see value in that approach. There's also an opportunity for experience to be transferred for the local companies to understand an industry that they are maybe not very familiar with. Opinions are divided on the issue. Some people would say, what's the point if I already know how to do things? I think that may be a little bit arrogant, but we have learned along the road the hard way that having a local partner sometimes is beneficial. But again, just my personal opinion is.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in the beginning, when we started opening the offshore market in Brazil in the late 90s, that was the strategy that the majors used preferentially. So they started being non-operating partners to Petrobras to learn or try to understand. Nobody understands our country, Brazil, but at least being together with Petrobras, they could understand how to move in the country. Our tax system, our legislation, our local content rules also, all is very complex, and that's the type of thing that makes a global operator scared of. So they started partnering Petrobras as non-operating partners. We had Shell, we had BG, we had Galp, we had Total, using that strategy before they started finally developing their own fields. So I think that it happened in the first round. I think that Equinor has some partnership with YPF. Not only, but Equinor is one of them. And by being non-operating partners, I think that they are preparing for the future when they want to develop their own fields. I think that's a very good strategy. And if I may say, if there is something that we can ask the national oil company, is to try and do some exploratory drilling to get more, move more the ball running in the offshore side. If they start with some findings, for sure the other operators, they will follow and the market will start to, as you say, make it happen, make the Argentine offshore E&P happen.
Okay, thank you very much, Pablo. Thank you very much, Andres. Carlos, thank you very much. Francesco, Andy, thank you very much.